Todd Stevens, the director of the library system, also known as the county librarian. So welcome. We are glad you are here.
I have one of these, so I hope everybody can hear. Very good. Yeah, I'm David Leaphart. I'm with NASA. I'm a NASA Solar System Ambassador. Our program's based out of JPL in California, in Pasadena. So if you get out to Pasadena, make sure you stop by. The visitor center there is really good. So we'll have you some information tonight. I'm going to do a little brief presentation, and then we'll go for Q&A after that.
Great. So Todd, I think you're going to kick us off with something exciting.
I am, and I'm going to grab my remote. Where is that, Derek? So this fellow right here is Derek Lawson. I'm bringing attention to Derek because I one time said to Derek, I said, Derek, you're like my Radar O'Reilly. And he said, who? So,
and now I know.
Perfect. So we're going to turn these lights off here, this line here. He's got it back there. He's working the control pad. These lights can burn it. There you go.
Oh, I can see.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, now if this works, we're in business. And if not, Derek will have to stand there and push every time I point to him. And so he certainly hopes this works. So y'all ready to roll? Let's try it. Okay, again, welcome. And we're going to walk through the library's construction project of the Planetarium. I always start all my presentations with this slide. That's Helen Fasu Stevens, no relationship to me, Kennedy, and her husband, Dr. L.C. Kennedy. Kennedy Street is named for the Kennedys, these folks. And they're buried at the Church of the Advent. When you walk out of the sanctuary, they have matching headstones to your left. I say this in jest. The bottom line is L.C. Kennedy died. It was Helen who started the library system. Helen did this. She donated her husband's work, or his books, and the space where he had his office, and started the very first library on Morgan Square back in 1884. Okay, so the headquarters library was built in '97. And as you drive into Spartanburg, it was designed to be a gateway into the city. Now think about Spartanburg in 1997. What are we gatewaying our way into? We really didn't know, did we? So what has happened is as time has marched on and things developed, so as this is a welcoming entrance into the city, our shoulder is really turned to the community for which we live in and serve as a public library. Our back is turned. So we had this green space, which people love green space, but this corner could be developed in some form or fashion to engage our neighborhood. Another challenge with this existing building, there's really no street level access. You can come and run up and down the stairs in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, just run up and down the stairs. Right. Or you could venture up the stairs, park in the back, walk around the building, take the stairs up. So we're not at street level. Well, folks, we're building a planetarium. Now let me tell you something. This is Marvin the Martian. That's an observatory. If there's a telescope involved, most likely it's an observatory, not a planetarium. We're building a planetarium with public libraries. There is a planetarium at the St. Charles Public Library in Louisiana. It's a small classroom planetarium built in the 60s during the space race. About 40 seats. Our gold circle is Spartanburg. We will have the only modern planetarium associated with a public library. The challenge has been, it's easy to applaud a concept. It comes down to implementation. So the challenge for us is finding similar models that are not science centers or museums or academics. It's very difficult to find a public library because there's only one, right? So we've had to feel our way through a few things. All right, so yes, we are building a planetarium. The perspective you have is if you're catty corner from across our lot to behind, okay, Greenwald's, Wild Wing, Smoking Butt Barbecue, I mean, that store, catty corner, that's your perspective looking back at our corner. So there's several features I just want to point out. The gold box indicates the location of the planetarium dome. You'll notice that in this concept designed by McMillan, Pazin, Smith, you have two entranceways into the new building through the lobby that is at street level. Folks, this is a planetarium. It's a domed theater. Yes, planetariums have to do with planets, but you can also show other things. Actually, I can show this PowerPoint to you. It would not be formatted for a 50-foot dome, but I can show you a PowerPoint or a short film or a long film, as long as it's stitched to accommodate a 50-foot dome. We will also have, this is when I find out who knows what, because is it tomato, is it tomato, potato, Caribbean, Foucault or Foucault, pendulum, created by a French physicist, which demonstrates the rotation of the Earth. It is not a timekeeping pendulum. It is based on your latitude. So our pendulum, and if you go out to Los Angeles, to the Grisham Observatory, their pendulum, we're on about the same latitude. It'll take the same amount of time as that pendulum works its way around the medallion in the floor. And it demonstrates, like I said, the rotation of the Earth. The way this building is designed in the blue box, you see a glass stack where you have a storefront. So if you're out and about in the evening and we're closed, there'll be a light. So you can just stop by and watch that little bob just swing back and forth. Clemson University has been great about assisting with this. Okay, this is an image of our Spark space. It's located on the third floor of this building. In it, we have our 3D printers, we have our sewing machines, we have our embroidery equipment, our vinyl cutters, our digital transfer equipment for if you have historical or family photos that you want to transfer over. We're taking the Spark space, we are rebranding it, and we're moving it to the new facility. Okay. The pink shows you the location of the Kitty Black Perkins Maker Lab. Well, who's Kitty? Kitty graduated from Carver High School in 1967 when we were segregated. Upon graduation, she went out to Los Angeles and lived with her aunt, received her 2-year degree in fashion design, knocked around in the fashion industry, and was later picked up by Mattel. She worked with Mattel for 27 years, and she designed 250 designs a year for 27 years. Everything from, yes, the original Black Barbie, but also Shania Twain, MC Hammer, a load of Barbie dolls, a variety of accessories. We are naming this for Kitty, Spartanburg, one of Spartanburg's makers. And Kitty will come out here. I think the applause started from somebody in pink, which I think is kind of plays to the theme. So Kitty will come out here for a couple of weeks when we open and teach classes. And we have her archives and her collection of Barbie dolls here, and we'll have those on display. So here is the slide of people who have been supportive. Doesn't mean they're giving me checks. Doesn't mean they're giving me checks. It means that they're helping, they're pushing back, they're helping us focus on what we're trying to accomplish, And I added the Philharmonic to my slide because they are a tremendous partner of the work we do with music sandwiched in, but also with what we're doing this afternoon. The funniest little logo up there is NASA. Who would think that we'd be sitting here and talking about NASA? They won't leave us alone. But we're grateful for that. David Leaphart, this guy right here is a NASA ambassador. He comes and he is doing programming with us, for us. He is a cheerleader. He really is. He's a spokesperson on what we're trying to accomplish, and he gets it. We're taking science to the streets, and he gets it. And because he gets it, it brings credibility to what we're doing. So in October last year, when Helene came through, this guy skipped town to Florida, which brings into question all kinds of things. It does. But at that time, back in October, our friends of the Spartanburg County Public Libraries were going to recognize David Leaphart as the Spartanburg County Public Library's Friend of the Year. And it's okay you don't leave us alone.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
I don't plan to.
That's fine.
No.
That's fine. So I hand you the plaque, and I also hand over not the microphone, because you're
I have one
wired.
of these guys.
You're at it.
Well, thank you so much for that. Wow. Okay. So thank you again for coming. We're done. I'm going to give you a little brief presentation, kind of merge a little bit into what we're talking about with the symphony with some science. Just kind of give you a little contrast there. So first we'll start here. Our solar system. Home sweet home, that's us. The remarkable thing I always love about this particular image is that our solar system was formed out of a ring of dust around our sun. Pretty much the same material through the ring. Look at the diversity. The planets are everywhere. They're not just all the same rocky planet. Tremendous amount of diversity. Otherwise, it wouldn't be much of a symphony if we played to a rock. So, let's start with Mars. I'm going to go in the same order that they go in the symphony. So we kind of march through the same thing. Start with Mars. Astrological symbol. The sword and the shield. Mars was historically the planet of war, of turbulence, named for the Roman god Mars. It got bad PR because it's really a very gentle place. As a matter of fact, billions of years ago now, it was a water planet. Had as much water as the Earth did, with streams, with oceans, and all that goes with it. So it's really been a very not warlike planet, not a very violent planet. We're exploring today with Perseverance rover, a robotic rover. It's basically a roving geologist. It's going along and looking for samples, taking samples, analyzing them, sending the data back, so we're learning an awful lot. That and its partner Curiosity is the other rover. I love this particular view of Mars. You can see it's a very calm place, not very violent. Now, unfortunately, it really is red, and if you go out and catch a good night and look up in the sky and find Mars, you can see it really does have a little reddish tint to it. You say, well, how did it get red? Well, it has a lot of iron in the soil. And what oxygen is there, not a whole lot, but some. What happens when you have oxygen and iron? Rust. So Mars is a big rust bucket, basically. It's rust. So nothing magical about that.
You add water and iron with the oxygen.
Yeah, and that doesn't help. You're exactly right. Let's go to Venus. Venus again, Mars was starting off as very violent, and you'll see from the symphony that it's very robust. Holst then moved to Venus. Astrological symbol, Venus, the Roman god of beauty and serenity. Astrological symbol is her hand mirror. Kind of symbolizes her mirror. Bringer of peace, that's what it's called in the symphony. Does that look like peace? No. It's, you're exactly right. You get the gold star. Venus is horrible. It's even sometimes called Earth's evil twin. Venus and the Earth are about the same size, not that far apart, not that far from the sun, but it's our evil twin because Venus has a very thick atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide. It's the greenhouse effect basically run berserk. Hottest place in the solar system. Even than Mercury, which is right next to the sun, Venus is the hottest place on Earth. Lead will melt on its surface. The atmosphere is like 90 times denser than the Earth. So we have a real problem even landing anything there because it crushes it. So if you have any of your vacation plans to Venus, take a cruise. Don't go to Venus. Mercury. Holst moves into Mercury, the closest planet to the sun. Name for the winged messenger, Mercurius, the Roman god. Astrological symbol up there is this winged cat, known for how swift Mercurius is. Blah, boring. Not compared to Venus and Mars. You say, what happened with Mercury? My goodness. And a lot of folks will mistake that for what? The moon. It does. It really looks like the moon. It's been beaten to a pulp with craters and asteroids and meteorites. And it's very fast. It moves the fastest around the sun. About 88 days. But here's the big deal that we've learned on Mercury. Even though it's very close to the sun, been beaten to a pulp, it's flooded with radiation, there's water there. Especially down in this area that doesn't get any sun because it's circulating this way. There's really no sun down there. There's water down deep in the craters. So water on Mercury, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's really something. We'll move out to Jupiter, the big guy out in the solar system. Jupiter's had a tremendous impact on the evolution of the solar system. Mars is the size it is because Jupiter stole a lot of the material away when it was forming, and so it was smaller. So it's been the good guy and the bad guy. Bad guy, Mars doesn't like Jupiter because it stole half its stuff. But nowadays, where it is, material and asteroids and comets that come from the outer solar system towards us, it deflects them. So it's the good guy. So thanks to Jupiter. We love Jupiter. Astrological symbol is really a sign of the eagle. It's also the first letter of Zeus, which is also the Greek god. This is named after Jupiter, the god of abundance and fertility and all this. So it's cults use it to bring of jollity, abundance. There's Jupiter back there for Peter. Here's Metis. You love that moon, isn't that great? Wonderful spot. Kind of small, but that's about the best image we have of it. And Io. Io is has the unfortunate nickname of the pizza planet. Don't look for pepperoni, I think more anchovies. But tremendous amount of volcanic activity. One of the most volcanically active bodies in the solar system is Io. This is the spacecraft that's currently out there now, Juno, which happens to be Jupiter's wife, investigating Jupiter and the moons. Saturn. Everybody loves Saturn. It's the astrological symbol is the sickle. Saturn is kind of known as the planet of just peace and time and sowing of seed, like the sickle is its symbol. So it's kind of calm, just kind of, they call it old age, but it just kind of goes through time. Everybody loves Jupiter. Who has seen Saturn through a telescope? Oh, terrific. Absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, you've got to see it yourself. I can show you pictures all day, but if you get a chance, go see it. Roper Mountain is a place you can go. That's one with a big telescope. For Peter again, you'll see why I keep referring to Peter in a minute. Titan. Titan is a phenomenal place. Bigger than the moon. Has a very thick atmosphere. On Earth, we have what's called the triple cycle of water, which is very important. So you have ice, you have water, and you have vapor or steam, all existing at the same time in different places. The same thing happens on Titan. There's lakes and rivers and rain and all this of methane. I'm not going there, but very fascinating place. Yeah. Todd's not going either.
No, I'm not going there.
No.
Not today.
Cassini spacecraft, if you look out front, I believe it's still there. Andy was going to send it back at some point. I believe Cassini's still there. Mm-hmm. Look out front before you leave out in the main lobby. You'll see a model of the Cassini spacecraft that explored Saturn. Turned up a tremendous amount of information. Tremendous. Uranus, the magician. There's really two astrological symbols for this one, but I picked this one. For some reason, back in those days when the symphony was written, early 1900s, they were identifying Uranus with platinum. Now, why in the world they were doing that, I have no idea. So the symbol is the symbol of Mars for the iron, and the sun's energy in the middle, that they said formed platinum. Got me. That's a puzzle. But there it is. Uranus is called the magician. It's astrologically associated with trickery and mystery and that sort of thing. And it lives up to its name. Uranus, and you can see here, a lot of features on it. Uranus is the weirdo of the solar system. The planets go around the sun with their north poles straight up, and you spin this way. You go around the sun. So we have seasons. North Pole, South Pole. Uranus is completely tilted on its side, and its north pole points to the sun. So it goes around, it literally rolls around the sun as it goes around. So the North Pole is always summer, and the South Pole is always winter. There's no seasons. So it's trickery. Lives up to its name. I love the color. No magic there. What happens with Uranus, a lot of its atmosphere is primarily, again, methane. Methane absorbs blue, reflects red. Gives you that blue color of Uranus. This is my favorite. I love Neptune. Neptune, the sea god, the Roman sea god. You can see the astrological symbol. It's the barbed spear of the sea god. One thing I want to point here, if you look in most literature, or on the internet or whatever else, you'll see Jupiter. Looks like this. It's beautiful. Really cobalt blue color. Absolutely just gorgeous. I love it. But it's not real. This is the true color of Neptune. What happened here when they got the data back from the Voyager spacecraft who went by years ago, they color enhanced it to pull out different features of that planet. And what happened is that image, that false color image, is the one that got put out in the press. So, sorry, if you go look for Neptune, here it is. That's really the color. And up here, I'm over to Peter again. You'll find out in a minute. Triton, moon of Neptune. Really neat looking place, huh? You see Neptune there in the background. I'm gonna bring us home. We know where that is, California. So we have the Earth, there's the astrological symbol, it's a circle with drawn into quadrants. Moon, and there's its symbol. No magic there. Shows a phase of the moon. Okay. Finish with the planets though. Let's finish up with the two big space telescopes. Big reason to put a telescope out in space is get rid of the atmosphere. If you use a telescope on the Earth and you're looking through the air messes with the light coming from the star. So you get, you know what, when you walk outside, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. That's the atmosphere messing with the light. So if you really want a nice, sharp, clear image, go outside of the atmosphere, go in orbit. So the older telescope, the Hubble, I'm sure you've probably heard of these in the news, and the new James Webb telescope. The James Webb telescope is humongous, it's huge, and it's turning science upside down daily. We're learning stuff and having to rewrite the books. So if you really want to go keep up with some of that, go out and look at what the Webb telescope is discovering. And we'll give you an example. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? You see the stars and you see all of this through here. It's called the Pillars of Creation. Is kind of where this is located. It's gas and dust out in space, probably the remnants of a supernova, a star that exploded and blew all this material out in space. Mostly hydrogen. It's mostly hydrogen coming from a star, blown up star. Here's the trick, it's a star nursery. This is where stars are born. And if you see these red spots, here's one here, and some up here, those are baby stars. Just coming out of the cocoon, being born. Yep, baby nursery, star nursery. You want to go there? How about 40,000 million miles away? That's further than easily. You know, you better pack a lunch. So it's a long way away. Webb telescope, no problem. You can see it just fine. I'll put this up. If you want to get a picture of it, you can. This particular link goes to the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and they've put together quite a list of popular and classical music that deals with astronomy and science. It's really a tremendous list. It really is quite good. Very, very, very informative. So if you want to get a picture of that, you can. Just let me know. Let's see one more camera. It's very good. I've been out there. Got it. You got it? Everybody got it? That wants to get it? Oh, okay. And if you change your mind afterwards, I can bring it back up when we're done and get a picture of it. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed
Thank you, David. Thank you, Todd. You all might be wondering, what in the world is a conductor, a composer, a librarian, and a NASA ambassador all doing on the same stage together? The reason is, it starts with the Planetarium, of course, right? I was appointed music director of the Spartanburg Philharmonic just about 2 years ago. And one thing that came across my desk within the first day of on the job, I was told there's a planetarium going up in Spartanburg just down the road. And it's sometime in 2025. And of course, everyone on the team thought, well, we have to do something. This is the type of thing that just captures people's imaginations. When you look up in the night sky, it's just one of these things that is both humbling and inspiring at the same time. And there is no way that we could let a planetarium come to town without marking it and celebrating it. And of course, bringing attention to this wonderful gift that we have, and also some small community in Louisiana, apparently. But they didn't do a concert to celebrate the Planetarium opening. So the obvious choice, of course, was Holst's The Planets. Now this is a piece that if you've never been to an orchestra concert in your life, you probably have heard before. And if you haven't heard it, I'm sure that you have seen Star Wars or Harry Potter, of which a lot of that music is based off of this specific piece. Now there is some things to clear up. Unfortunately, Holst, when he wrote it, was not actually referencing the planets. He was referencing the occult, sort of the astrological, sort of the ideas of what the planets represented. But given modern technology, it is hard to ignore the imagery that comes along with it and sort of the music that just adds to the epic quality of some of these pictures that you see. You also know that Pluto is not a part of Holst's planets because Pluto was not yet a planet. It became a planet, and then it got downgraded. And I think it got brought back into the club briefly, and then it got downgraded again. Is that right?
It's a planet. It's a planet.
Well, as a matter of fact, when he wrote this, Pluto hadn't even been discovered.
Okay, well,
There you go.
right.
Sorry, Pluto.
Sorry, Pluto.
Pluto, man.
But it wasn't just enough to do this wonderful piece. There's another 45 minutes that we had on the concert, and we thought, well, what else can we do? And we really wanted to stick with sort of the outer space themes. And so we thought, because Holst didn't write something about Earth, we were going to start on Earth. And there's a lovely piece called Of a Spring Morning. It's by a French composer. It sounds exactly like Harry Potter. So we're going to spend some time at the movies a little bit. It's about 5 minutes long. It's a wonderful way to open the concert. This was one of the best French composers that had ever lived, and she unfortunately died at 30, thereabouts in the 1930s. But we also have another incredible resource in our community, and he's sitting to my right, Peter BK. He's our resident composer. And we thought, well, what is missing from this concert? We realized the moons were missing from this concert. There are incredible moons in the solar system. And so I asked Peter, can you write us about a 20 to 30 minute piece about the moons of the solar system? And then Peter came up with a good idea, along with Hannah, our education manager. Well, why don't we solicit community members, specifically students, to write some prose about the moons of the solar system. And so we selected five poems or prose that will be read, and they will accompany Peter's piece. So before I ask Peter about his piece to tell you about it, if you have plans on April 26th at 7 p.m., you need to cancel them and come to Twitchell Auditorium at 7 p.m., preferably earlier because parking is a little bit tricky, especially when we have as many people coming as we expect. There are about this many tickets left, so move quickly. But I would like to turn it over to Peter, who's going to tell you a little bit about his piece.
I already have my ticket.
That's great.
Yes, and I'll be there early because it's there at 6 o'clock. They have the beer and wine tasting.
Good man.
Have that, yes. So, well, like John said, this sort of started, well, my ideas started with the creative writings of students in the community, and it was open K through 12, and we actually got some great poetry from all ranges, and the winners also show that range. We have, I think, 4th grade through 12th grade represented from those 4, and it was done blind, so we really selected them not just based on where they're from or how old they are. But they had some really great stuff, and actually, if you grab to here, the poems are in there. They're also listed online, and they serve to inspire me to write this piece that you're going to hear next week. But I already had some ideas to start with, and so the combination of those two things, I was looking for poems that spoke to me and shared some of those ideas about each of the moons. Now I'm not like Holst or anything, but I did take into account some of those, the stories of the names, the Greek gods or characters that they're named after, whether they had to do anything to do with the planet or not, or the moon or not. And then the other thing is that I looked at the moon itself and said, what are some of the characteristics? So as you know, David explained some of the characteristics of those planets, the moons also have some bizarre, interesting stories, volcanic, super icy, water down below, possible life, all of those things. They're not all just cold rocks. Some of them are, but they are more interesting than that most of the time. So I chose 6 moons, excuse me, for the students to write about based on some of those interesting characteristics. And then for the last movement, the 6th movement, it's our own moon for that one. John, do you have any questions before I...
No, you're doing great.
No.
They don't want to hear from me. I didn't write the piece.
Well, I'm still writing the piece, as you know, so I'll probably be working on it right up until the dress rehearsal, so always want to make changes at the last minute. But I'll go in order that is a little bit different than what's in the here. The first movement will be Triton, and the reason for that, I really felt that Triton being the herald, you know, this trumpet blast has got to be in there right at the beginning. And so I'm going to have, it's very calm, very cold and icy, just like this poem, and then there's this trumpet blast, and something I've always wanted to try is a trumpet blast off stage. You've heard it in other pieces. Can you give me an example?
Several. There's Mahler.
Mahler
uses several trumpets off stage. 1, 3, 6, 9. You know the symphonies. Beethoven did it.
Beethoven.
With Leonore, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to do that, but I want to do something a little bit different. So rather than just having them far away and saying, "Hey, this is going to sound really distant," there's going to be a guy on stage, our first chair trumpet player. He's going to play, and there's going to be an echo off stage. So the second trumpet is actually playing almost the same thing as the first person, but off stage, far away. We haven't decided yet where to go. I'm thinking maybe put them in the lobby.
Sure.
The trick about that, though, of course, is that you got to give them time to get back onto the stage. So that trumpet player has 3 measures in the first movement and then nothing, just so that they can walk on back onto the stage. So, that's fun. I'm really looking forward to that. The second movement is Io, and this one, as you described, Io is very volcanic, and it's actually caught between 2 other moons and torn apart by its relationship to the other celestial bodies, but so was the character Io. She was torn between Zeus and Athena, was it? I'm trying to remember now.
I'm a conductor.
Sorry. You're supposed to direct me in the right direction.
Yeah.
Zeus and Hera, and so they had this fight over her, and it's much like that moon, and it's just torn apart. Instead of delving into this volcanic sound, though, I didn't want it to just be eruptions and noise and anger. I really wanted to delve into her as a character and saying, instead, this is what it would be like to be in that position. And so it's dramatic, it's cold, it's harsh, but there's love and there's hope in it. It's much more of a sweet sounding piece, and I've played it for a few of my colleagues. Granted, it's just the MIDI mock-up on my computer, but some of them got choked up, and I thought, wow, is it that good or is it that bad? I don't know. But I'm hoping it's for the good one, and we'll, with the real musicians and with John's interpretation, I'm really hoping that everybody's crying with joy or something. But the poem that I chose is called A Scarred Maiden, and I think that it really worked well, the melancholic wail and things that are mentioned that work well with the piece and really inspired me to go in that direction. And it ends quietly, hopeful, but I also get to use the organ. Now, how many of you have been to Twitchell and seen or heard the organ? Just a few hands, yeah. So there's an organ in the planets, and John said I could use anything that Holst uses. So I'm going to use that organ, but I'm going to use it a lot more, because why would you get an organist and a big organ like that and not tell him to play as loud as possible, right? So that's one of my favorite things. I am going to go a little bit off of Holst and get a vibraphone in there. But I wasn't going to do that at first, and then apparently the last concert, our percussionist, Matt McDaniel, brought in a mini vibraphone. Same range, but just very tiny, and he was able to lift it up on stage. It's great, it can fit in the back. Because I don't know if you know this, Holst wrote for an enormous orchestra, some of the instruments we don't even have, like the bass flute and the bass oboe, which we're not going to be doing, we've got that covered in other parts. But it's this enormous orchestra, so we're going to have 85 to 90 people on the stage. It's back to back. It's going to be really hard for everybody to sit up there. I pity them. Thankfully, I get to be out in the audience. But definitely going to use that organ and use the full power of that orchestra. After that is that tiny little moon that he talked about Metis, which I've been mispronouncing for the last year. I've been saying Metis, but it's Metis.
Metis.
Sounds so much cuter. I was definitely not thinking
Potato.
Right. So Metis, the one thing that caught me about Metis is that it's the fastest moon. It's the fastest orbiting moon. So much like Mercury, I'm going to write something really, really fast. And so I did listen to Mercury and said, okay, I want to go with that idea and write for this little nondescript rock that has barely any good photos. I mean, it's basically blurry. It's moving so fast, it's blurry, or really small. So that's what I'm going for. And the one poem that I got that really stuck out to me was the one that is single words, choppy, just very quick, and rolls off the tongue, and it sounds to me the most like the fastest moving object, the fastest moving moon. And so what I wrote was a really, really fast piece. And John, what do you think about that?
There's a speed limit that we're going to have to obey.
Right. And it's, I'm interested to hear the orchestra. It's also very short. Again, it's a small, tiny little rock. It's so small, it's not even round, you know, it's not rotating enough to have that. But it's got all the little colors and twinkling and very little written for the low instruments. But I did bring out a little bit, because it's still going to be, as John said, a cinematic sort of adventure. And so I kept going back to that idea and pulling from it. For every single movement, it's going to have something similar to a movie you may have heard or seen. I say heard, I listen to movies. Something to a movie soundtrack all throughout. All the themes are tied to that. So then the next one being Titan. When I say Titan, what do you think? Giant, huge, right? It's a massive moon. Is it the largest moon?
No.
No, what's the largest moon?
I'm trying to think.
It's Saturn's largest moon.
Yeah.
So it's
Saturn's largest.
Yeah, it's really big, and it's got this, massive name. But as far as Titan goes, there's not a single god of Greek god mythology. It's a group of them. And so with that in mind, I was kind of stuck on the story behind it. Thankfully, we had a wonderful submission by an 8th grader from McCracken who tells an entire story. And yes, it describes the planet itself, or the moon itself, but it's also from his perspective, and it's going on and looking out from that planet. I keep saying planets because we're doing the planets too. Looking out and exploring, and so I wanted that sense of adventure. And I think this is the movement that's going to sound most like a movie soundtrack, you think? From what you've seen so far?
From what I've seen thus far, yes. Yeah. We'll tell you about that in a second, everyone.
Yeah, I did email him some scores last night and some recordings just to peruse. So that one's going to have some moments where you say, is that from that movie? Is that soundtrack? Is that theme? And it's meant to elicit that response, but it's not necessarily supposed to say, oh, that's E.T. And if you think of E.T., great, but if you think it is E.T., then I failed. So hopefully it's just reminiscent, and it's much more of an adventure. And this is one where, again, I get to use the full orchestra and the big organ and explore all sorts of stuff that I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid, because this is a massive orchestra. And then I guess after that we have Phobos and Deimos, and I keep to my notes here. I put them together. They're both fairly small moons with similar characteristics. Is that true? Phobos and Deimos are similar characteristics?
Similar. One's a lot smaller. One has a huge crater on it.
The huge crater, right. But I wanted to focus there.
They're similar.
They're similar enough. And I wanted to make them the children of war, because they are going around Mars. And here I go back to that Mars as war and not peace idea. But this one is going to be much more warlike, but very broken, and lots of starts and stops. And it's sort of shattered, hit by that giant meteor or something to create that crater. And it's fractured, because this isn't the god of war. These are the two that ride in with him, fear and dread. So this isn't like quoting that. It's just like it's an echo bouncing off of it. I also get to bring in some of my pop music influences in listening to other kinds of music, and I'm going to bring that into this piece as well. And some other soundtracks and video game music. I really like all this things. So you're going to hear all of it in these pieces. And then finally, we come back to Earth, we go to the moon, and this one, initially I started with a mass. from the Renaissance as an inspiration. And I still have that in the back of my mind, but after months and months of writing, it's really far in the back of my mind now. So you're not going to necessarily hear that. You might hear hints of it throughout the whole piece, but really for that last movement, it's about home and it's about return. It's about cycles and the rotations of all of the solar system, and then a big slam bang finish. So I hope you like that. But John, you had some questions?
Yes, well, I have one question for each one of you, but before we did that, I did want to clarify a couple of things about Peter's piece. So, and they are not related to one another, but they do seem to be important. The first is that he referenced using the organ. Now, there is a beautiful organ in Twitchell Auditorium, and it was built for the space. And if you know organists, they all know where all the organs are in the world, and they're actually on a map. And this one is on a map, and I showed it to a couple of organist friends of mine, and they all tell me that this is an incredibly unique organ that was just built at a specific time, and it really fills out the space. And so if you've ever seen Interstellar, the movie, my favorite space movie, the way that the composer describes space is using the organ, because it is just this huge ethereal sound. So Peter does truly pull out all the stops. Now I will tell you that because this is a new piece, it's not finished yet. And so if you like a little risk in your concert going experience, this is the concert to go to. Because I told Peter we have to have it by Tuesday, which is when we start rehearsals. Now, usually in the music world, most of this stuff has been written for about 100 or 200 years. So there's some copies lying around. But back in the day when this stuff was being written new, sometimes the musicians would get it the day of. So Mozart wrote his famous Don Giovanni overture the night before. He was a procrastinator. Rossini was throwing pages out to his copyists 2 days before his opera was supposed to go on stage. So Peter's in a very good tradition here. In fact, I don't want to perform something from a composer who meets the deadline, right? We need a little stress, a little anxiety, a little risk in the piece. We'll come back to you, Peter, in just a second. Todd thinks that he's done. He's just waiting his time, but I got a question. I'm ready. Will you tell us sort of the short version of how the Planetarium even came to be?
Okay, well, first of all, y'all are great, and I really appreciate the turnout this evening, because that's a real show of support for the work of the Philharmonic, who has done phenomenal work for our greater community, so thank you. The Planetarium, this is so funny, because Derek and I have had this conversation. As I said, we had been looking at this corner for a period of time, and when you think about the role of libraries and bringing information forward, whether it's through, back in the day, you know, of course you had books, then you had newspapers, then you had magazines, or then you had, was it going to be a VHS tapes, or was it going to be beta? Was it going to be cassette tapes, 8-track, CDs? Libraries have grappled with formats. What a planetarium does, as this space does, it provides essentially a format, a place for people to share experiences, to think, and to absorb information. Very similar to this room, in a different sort of way. It will anchor the other corner. And I have to say to our designated usher in the back, John Cribb, he is the chair of the library's Board of Trustees. And so the board, we were in this room for a board meeting, and I pitched the idea. We knocked it around, we talked about funding, how would we fund it, those sorts of things. And then once we got, as the trustees and library administration, we're on the same page. I hate to say easy, because nothing should be easy, but it's gone super well. From the fundraising to the design aspects to the construction. And so if that's an indication that we're on the right path.
We're doing a concert.
We're on the right path. Yeah. If I got folks writing music and composing, I should say, are we on the right path?
I think so.
I think so.
Great. Thank you. Now, I think that I have a pretty cool title. Music director of the Spartanburg Philharmonic has a nice sort of roundness and just enough elegance to it, but not sort of intimidating. But when I heard NASA ambassador, now that is a cool title. How does someone become a NASA ambassador? Yeah.
It's there's a yearly application process. So you have to fill out an application about this thick and give them ideas.
Every year.
Well, you renew it. You can
Okay.
be renewed.
Do you think a friend of the Spartanburg Library is going to help
Hey,
you
that's a
renew
resume
it?
builder.
That's a resume builder.
Yeah.
That little plaque right there.
You fill out the application, you have to put your education background, what do you want to do? You have to give them, I think it was 15 different event ideas of things that you would do in detail. How many people you would expect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they take and go through and filter those out. And once a year, they choose, I think, 30 new ambassadors, because there is some attrition, some other people leave the program.
They're just not very good. They're not as good as you.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, well, either that or they just decide to move on. But it's a vetting process that you go through.
It's very cool. That's very cool. All right, Peter. So I have been thinking about Peter a lot because I've been anxiously looking through my email for a piece to show up. But I realized that we might have put a little pressure on Peter here. So not only does he have to stand up to the likes of Holst and Lily Boulanger, two composers who wrote Lily wrote an incredibly tight piece that's just some of the best 5 minutes of orchestral music you could possibly listen to. And then Holst wrote possibly one of the most famous pieces in the world. So not only are you asking you to fill in 25, 30 minutes standing with either one of those on either side of you, but we're also maybe putting a little pressure of the community of, we're opening this planetarium. Do you think you can write something for our community? How are you doing? I'm sorry, I didn't realize I put that kind of pressure on you. How are you doing?
I haven't slept in a while.
Okay. I've always marveled at composition. Anything I write is terrible, and I just don't quite understand how it happens. You start with a blank page. How do you get from a blank page to hopefully a piece by next week?
I'll tell you when I get there. No. So that is funny. The blank page is one of the most terrifying things to face, always. And that's for writing, that's for painting. And my wife, who teaches at Upstate, she teaches painting and says, just put paint down. Just get something on the canvas. You can paint over it. Just start doing something. And granted, it's a little bit different with notes because you can't just throw notes at a page. But you can start with something. And honestly, I have been writing music for a really long time. And a lot of the early stuff was really bad. But it gives me some ideas sometimes. And so I will take some chunks of old music, stuff that I wrote when I was in middle school or high school or something like that, and say, oh, there's something here. Just a couple of little phrases maybe. But then the other thing is I just listen to a lot of music and I read scores and get ideas from other people who have faced similar problems. I mean, really it's creative problem solving. And so what I'm doing is saying, okay, I'm facing this particular transition, or I've got these instruments that I want to write for, and I want to say this thing. Who else has done it, or who else has tried and come close, and look at what works and what doesn't. And so, yeah, going from a blank page to something, that's tough. Then there's the editing, and then there's the carving and sculpting, and it takes a lot of time, but it's a lot easier to edit something than it is to, start at blank.
Yeah, totally agree.
Totally. I will tell you that we're making a little fun of it now, but everything that he sent me is incredible. It holds up against Holst and Lily. And I will tell you that the first concert I did here, we asked him to write a piece in the first half. And by the time we got to the end of the first half, no one needed the second half because the first half was so good. So, not to put more pressure on you, but
No pressure.
now everybody's expecting something. Before we wrap up, we did want to see if there were any questions from the audience. Yes, please.
I am the NASA ambassador.
That's you.
Can you drive a spaceship through Jupiter because it's a gas planet?
To drive it through Jupiter, probably not. It's very turbulent. It would probably rip the spacecraft apart. Number one, there might be a rocky core. So you don't want to hit that going in a spaceship. That could be very bad. So, no, not really.
But that's a great question.
Yes, good question, because those are the gassy, you got Jupiter and Saturn, big balls of gas. And you have Uranus and Neptune are really the same thing, but farther out. They're called the ice giants. Just so much cold and ice there.
Great. I think we saw one in the middle. Yes, please.
I wanted to know if you wanted to be an astronaut. Is that how you got involved with NASA?
Oh, well, yes. It's my previous work with NASA was at MIT in Boston. I worked on the aviation side of NASA's National Aeronautics and Space Administration, not just rockets and astronauts, working in aviation safety and navigation. Prior to that, getting ready to go to college, I wanted to be a Navy flyer and go on to become a test pilot, and then proceed that a lot of test pilots move on to become astronauts. Then a little something happened around the 10th grade, namely football injury. Busted my left knee. And then on top of that, at 18, I started wearing these things. Knocked me out of the astronaut program. But
I also wanted to say if it's too hot in Florida, you can come to Spartanburg. I was in Florida, everybody said it was too hot. Here they just say it's hot.
it does get hot in Florida and rain.
Great.
That's hot.
Please, yes.
We enjoy all of your concerts, Charlie. We wondered, were there other pieces you considered that maybe didn't make the cut for this one that you might consider in the future?
That's a great question. This concert was one of those that just sort of came together pretty quickly. And so we were able to cross this off the list within minutes. I think the team, we got this thing together before we even sort of started considering any other ideas. But because space is such an imagination-filled place, I think we have some other ideas down the road for sure. Especially some of the movie music that's associated with space as well. Yes, please.
When the planetarium is up and running, will you have some courses, some educational courses for adults?
Right. So one of the goals with the planetarium is clearly there's folks talk about students and children and exposing kids to science and math and those sorts of things. But there's also folks who are aging in place and who want amenities and they want to have access. And that is what this planetarium allows, is that sort of access. So along those lines, we will work with on that last slide I showed a bunch of little logos and things. We will work with our institutions of higher learning, and Boone, I see you sitting over there. So we will work with our institutions to develop programs for lifelong learners, because that's what public libraries do as well. It's really for lifelong learning, and absolutely. In fact, Clemson has already said they are coming over, they want to come over, they want their students to teach in this environment, and they understand that you can have a physicist, but can you have a physicist who can really relate and speak to science and space to everyday folks? And so that's been fun to bring together those sorts of thoughts. So absolutely, yes.
Well, that's great news, thank you.
And just to know before I know that you're going to be closing out soon. We are planning a ribbon cutting in mid-September. Now, that's contingent on a variety of things. Don't run out into the streets and say, oh my gosh, but that is our intent, mid-September.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We'll stay up here to answer any questions that you have. April 26th at 7 p.m. at Twitch Auditorium, Lily Boulanger's Of a Spring Morning, Peter B.K.'s The Moons and Holst the Planets, with video, or pictures, and some spoken word as well. See you there. Thank you.